Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Commissioner Savage.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, Ms. Princeby. All right, commissioners, I would also like to introduce our new student commissioners for this year, Cassandra Rio and Peter Childs have joined us. I have given Charlie the assignment to nudge me if I forget to call on them at the end of the public hearing. So we'll make sure that we hear from them. Commissioners, the next item on our agenda is approval of the minutes from our October 19th meeting. If there are no changes, can we hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Commissioner Garrettson?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from October 19th. Commissioner Hastings' computer is still not working, so we'll do that by a hand vote. So all in favor of approval of the minutes, raise your right hand, please. Okay, and Commissioner Savage and Commissioner Aguilar were absent, so they have to abstain from voting. So the resolution passes on a 5-0 vote. All right. Ms. Chow, any changes to the agenda tonight?
Good evening, Chairman Rossler. No changes. Thank you.
Okay, very good. And these are the four that's, okay, very good. All right. The next item, ladies and gentlemen, that's on our agenda is oral communications. This is a time that the commission sets aside for members of the public to address the commission on items that are not on our agenda. To address the commission tonight, you will need to fill out a speaker slip. They're out in the hallway. So I don't have anyone that wants to speak under oral communication. Do I see anyone that in the audience? I do not. So we will move on to our public hearing. Tonight on our public hearing, we will hear from an oral presentation by our staff. The applicant will be given an opportunity to add to that or be available to answer questions. The commission, after the staff presentation, we will open it up to the commissioners for questions of staff or the applicant. When that's finished, I will open the public hearing. To speak at the public hearing, again, we ask you to fill out a speaker slip and give it to Ms. Presby, our recording secretary. I normally call on people in the order that I have received the speaker slips. Tonight we have a little bit unusual. Ms. Sack has asked for an organized presentation. She has 3 other neighbors who have donated their time to her, so she will get a 12 minutes to make her presentation. That's somewhat unusual and up to my discretion, but we want to hear from the neighbors. So after the public hearing is closed, we'll open it up to commission discussion, and then we will call for the question and cast a vote. Our action tonight is a legislative action, so it will be making a recommendation to the city council. This won't be the final action on this item. It will go on to the council with our recommendation. So having said all that, I will turn it over to Mr. Winters for his staff presentation.
Thank you, Chairman Rossler and commissioners. This is the Vista Grande subdivision project, planning case P21-0114. And it's a request for a mitigated negative declaration, general plan amendment, zone change, and tentative subdivision map for a 28-lot subdivision at 2277 Vista Grande Drive. The applicant is Greg Perrine. The project location is shown on this slide. It currently consists of 2 legal parcels located on the north side of Vista Grande Drive, just west of Vista Grande Terrace, parcel numbers 171, 100, 05, and 28. This is located on the northeast boundary of the city. The site is approximately 17 acres in size, just under at 16.99 acres, and currently contains 1 existing single-family residence on site. And historically, the site was used for residential and agricultural purposes. Summarizing the project, the property was annexed into the city of Vista in 2017, along with a zone change to agricultural A1 zone and an approved subdivision map for 14 one-acre minimum residential lots at a density of 0.8 dwelling units per acre. No general plan amendment was required at that time, as this area within the city's sphere of influence is designated under general plan as rural residential, which is a 1 unit per acre density. On January 12, 2021, the City Council discussed a preliminary proposal from the applicant to allow for an increase in density to 2 dwelling units per acre to accommodate a 28-lot subdivision consisting of 1/2 acre residential lots. The applicant requests to amend the general plan land use designation from rural residential to low-density residential, which would allow for the 2 dwelling units per acre density, and to change the zoning from agricultural A1 zone to the estate residential E1 zone, and approval of the tentative subdivision map for the 28 1/2 acre residential lots. This exhibit shows the proposed land use and zoning. The general plan map is on the right, zoning map on the left. The upper side of the left-hand picture shows the current designation of rural residential for the subject property. The lower picture there shows the proposed change to low-density residential. On the zoning slide, it shows agricultural A1, the current designation, and the proposed E1 residential rezone, which would match the adjacent property to the southwest. Covering the project details, it's 28 residential lots ranging from 21,780 to 26,116 square feet in size. Covering the required parking, the development code requires a minimum of 2 garage stalls, which would be 56 for the total units, plus 2.5 guest parking stalls, a total of 70. So the required total is 126 stalls. The project proposes to provide 196 stalls on the private properties. The homes are going to be designed to be 1-story, single-family detached homes ranging from 2,900 to 4,100 square feet, anticipated to have 3-car garages at a minimum. 4.6 acres of landscaping would be provided on the overall project site, with decomposed granite trails and park benches in 3 homeowner association maintained landscape areas. The project also includes stormwater treatment areas to control stormwater flows that would be channeled into underground storage facilities. This slide shows the proposed subdivision map. Basically, it's on the north side of Vista Grande Drive, which is shown on the south portion of the slide. There's a looping street provided through the development. There would be a private road consisting of private street B and private street A on the west side of the property. 3 street lights would be included, where shown by the blue circles. And at the far southeast corner, there is a connection to Vista Grande Terrace that would be gated for emergency access only. The slide shows the landscape plan, approximately 4.6 acres landscaped, including landscaped road frontages with street trees, slope and erosion control, and stormwater areas. Walking trails and benches would be included in the open space landscape areas, where shown by the green arrows on the slide. Regarding project conformance, the general plan conformance, the proposed density of 1.6 dwelling units per acre would be consistent with the requested general plan land use designation of low density. Regarding the development code, the subdivision is designed to comply with the development standards specified in the proposed estate E1 zone. Setbacks, building height, parking, and other code requirements would be verified upon review of construction drawings. Regarding environmental review, a mitigated negative declaration was prepared for the proposed project in accordance with CEQA, which determined that the project would not result in any unmitigated significant environmental impacts. The MND was circulated for public review from October 2nd through November 1st of this year. 6 comment letters were received and responses to the comments were included in the MND as attachment K. The project will be required to comply with the mitigation measures specified in the MND and included in the project conditions of approval. Staff's recommendation is for adoption of a resolution recommending City Council approval of the mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring and reporting program for the Vista Grande subdivision project located at 2277 Vista Grande Drive, APNs 171-100-05 and 28, and also adopt resolution recommending City Council approval of the proposed general plan amendment, zone change, and tentative subdivision map for a 28-lot, single-family residential subdivision located at the same address. That concludes staff's presentation. The applicant also has a presentation and would like to touch on further on some of the project details. Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to call on Mr. Perrin. Name and address.
My name is Greg Perrine. I'm the applicant for the proposed project. Live at 1800 Port Renwick in Newport Beach, California. Chris, thanks so much for the introduction. I appreciate it. Commissioners, thank you guys so much for your time today to present the project. If you don't mind, I'll just remove this completely. So as kind of Chris alluded to, just want to kind of walk through a couple of different scenarios and provide some illustrations on what we're proposing and some of the benefits that we see from the project. As Chris alluded to, it's about 17 acres. We're proposing 28 1/2 acre lots. We believe what we're proposing to develop is kind of consistent with the existing topography of the site. Generally speaking, our kind of average cuts and fills throughout the entire 17 acre site are between 4 and 5 feet. Different areas with some greater depths, but generally speaking, we're trying to do our best to adhere to the existing topography of the site. Over the last 13 months or so, we've worked very diligently with both our project consultant team, city council, city staff, and the adjacent residents in the surrounding neighborhood to kind of really put together what we feel is a project that is balanced and kind of consistent with the overall the general area. We went through a detailed CEQA process, a mitigated negative deck, where we kind of prepared all sorts of technical studies relating to transportation, biological, environmental, air emissions, gas, et cetera, et cetera. Most everything came back deemed to be non-really evasive, and if anything, with minor mitigation. One of the things too that we're excited for is as we move forward with the project is, we brought on a partner that we believe is someone who is a solid partner, who has a well-rounded reputation throughout both California, but most specifically North County, San Diego, and Shea Homes. So we're very excited to partner with them and kind of hopefully be in a position to move this project forward to kind of start the next steps of the project. To provide a little bit of context as far as the existing site, right now there's one existing dwelling unit on it. It's about 1,000 square feet. And through the reports and the studies, it's been deemed to be non-historical. Outside of the home, most everything else is kind of primarily non-native kind of vegetation, effectively. To provide some additional kind of context as far as a visual is concerned, you can kind of see we put up a couple of pictures to illustrate where we're looking. So the picture there at the top is a picture kind of looking easterly from our project. And what we're trying to show there is effectively the surrounding area with some existing residential development on higher topographical areas to kind of show some existing conformance to what we're proposing, to kind of adhere to some of those existing topography and elevations. The picture kind of in the middle was provided to us from one of our neighbors at one point in time, where you can see a little bit of the misuse of the property. Trash, mattresses as shown in the picture get dumped onto the site. because the site has been sitting fallow for quite some time. While there is a resident on there, again, it's a small house on an overall 17-acre site. So we've been told by some of the neighbors adjacent to us to the south that there is at times misuse, some mischievous activities, if you will. And I think as we move forward, hopefully with the potential development, it'll clean some of that up to make sure there's some conformity and some more security for that particular area. Right now, you'll see the other two pictures on the right and left of the slide is kind of an existing picture of the existing Vista Grande Drive. And this road is, as you can see, very degraded. The asphalt is peeling away. Erosion's taking place over time. And, the existing road is in itself only about 10 to 12 feet wide. And the accessibility and the safety to get to and from right now for the residents, the 7 residents who live south of us, is very challenging. It's really not a safe environment. And our project, as we go through, is something that's going to fix this. We propose to widen this road and make it more of a 28-foot wide paved section with curb and gutter on both sides. It's going to be a private road that'll be owned and maintained by the HOA, but we feel with that enhancement, it's going to not only protect the future residents of our development, but also the community to the south of us, the 7 residents, as well as fire accessibility issues. We've been told by some of the neighbors right now from a trash perspective that the trash truck, as it comes up, is inability to obviously turn around because it's such a narrow road. And the trash truck then has to back up, and there are some kids and some neighbors around there as well. And it just kind of presents an unsafe measure that, again, with hopefully our development and the widening of these roads, really put kind of a better context with regard to the safety of our public services. In addition to kind of the trash, again, the big issue at this point in time is the ability to kind of protect and serve from a fire standpoint. The existing site is very much non-native vegetation. The ability for a fire apparatus to get up there right now is extremely challenging. I don't think it's even can happen. So obviously with the development and the enhancement of infrastructure, increasing capacity is going to provide for probably just better circulation overall for the fire department and other life safety first responders to really kind of help support and not only protect our particular property and area, but this kind of the surrounding and adjacent areas as well. The last thing I had mentioned, kind of you can see in the picture with the roads is, right now the way the site kind of flows topographically, all the water kind of comes down from more or less north and it kind of comes southwesterly. It goes onto Vista Grande Drive, and some of the neighbors where we don't have protective curbs on their side, there's times in a rain event where their driveways and ultimately garages and some of their homes get flooded. And obviously with our project to kind of develop the site and put in the proper means and methods with respect to stormwater and treatment, this would alleviate that concern as well. When we started this process, again, 13 months or so ago, we did so with some project goals of what we wanted to try to accomplish with what we're proposing. And the first one is kind of the sustainable kind of community. And we feel we kind of accomplished this in many different ways, but one in which is just the increased infrastructure, whether it be actually surface improvements for roads, the extensions of water mains and water capacity, as well as sewer and stormwater. All these additional enhancements from an infrastructure standpoint would make this kind of project a standalone in the sense of being able to be sustainable. Repurpose. We showed some pictures that, showed the land being kind of non-native vegetation, in some instances misused. And so we feel that with the development of this site and kind of updating and providing kind of adequate fire protection means and method from a suppression standpoint would give us an enhancement to the overall area. The big thing for us too is maintaining kind of some of the existing and surrounding elements. Very important to us to incorporate that semi-rural kind of elements throughout that we see as we come up to our project. And so, with the 4.6 acres of land, open landscape, some of the common area open spaces, in addition to these large half-acre lots, we feel we kind of have accomplished that with what we're currently proposing to do. Lastly, and kind of maybe most importantly, was we set a goal to kind of listen. We felt it be very important to be very open and be very transparent with not only city staff and city council, but the residents of the city of Vista and unincorporated county of San Diego. We have held a lot of different meetings and so forth, but whether it was individuals who supported the project or ones who may have been against it, again, we felt very, we've done a good job, at least in our opinion, of really reaching out and hearing and listening to what the surrounding residents wanted to hear and try to put forth those different elements throughout our project. To kind of illustrate some of the measures we took with respect to the communication and the listening is we met with the kind of the surrounding Vista Grande neighbors, we met with the community members, and we've met with the city council and staff. What we heard through a lot of those conversations, what we have noted there is the traffic issues, specifically there at East Vista Way and Warmlands, the fire and safety issues due to inadequate infrastructure and the inability to kind of protect and serve at this point in time, There's an eyesore right there at the intersection of Warmlands and East Vista Way with the gas station. We've been very active with that gas station, the owner, to try to just at least lend a helping hand and see what we can do to try to see if things can move along. We've had multiple conversations with the owner. We obviously don't have the ability to, demolish and fix it up ourselves because we don't own the property, but we have taken it on our own to kind of go out and really engage the individual to see if there's anything we can do to help, because that's something that we heard from the existing residents that surround our property as a kind of somewhat of an eyesore as they kind of approach our project. This next slide here kind of illustrates some of those characteristics of what we have done, with respect to meeting. And so you'll see we had neighborhood meetings. We've had a total of 4 of those to date. Most of those have taken, or a couple have taken place on the subject property. And in 2 instances, we've been very nice of some of the existing residents to open their house up to us and really have those on site to meet. We've had meetings with city council members. You'll see we have met with them multiple different times. We have another anticipated one coming up here in January. And then lastly, we've committed ourselves to putting forth monthly newsletters, and we've sent out about a total of 8 of those. And the intent of all this communication was, again, an opportunity for us to be as transparent as possible. The newsletters, the goal of those was to update the people who we had on our list, the best of our ability to get email addresses, which was about 25 individuals on the distribution list. And it was really to kind of update them on the current progress, the status, the next steps, some of the items that we are working through with respect to how we can kind of make the specific area local to us a little bit better enhanced, as well as maybe some more of the regional improvements as well. And so, with the collection of those different meetings, one or two of our meetings we had out on site from a neighborhood meeting. Councilmember Joe Green attended as well because we felt that would be very important. And again, what we did at these is listen. We took notes. We did our best to accommodate and provide some enhancements and some deviations to what we were originally kind of proposing to really be in a position to provide a balanced proposed project. To date, we kind of have received about 8 support letters, most of those from the adjacent neighbors to the southerly who border our project, who currently use Vista Grande Drive as their access. And again, we've done our best to work very diligently with them, and we've looked into different opportunities to try to, again, make everything work. And some things we're able to accommodate, and some things we ultimately weren't able to accommodate. But the communication throughout has been transparent. It has been robust. And again, it's been a great exercise for us because it was great to hear what some of the surrounding neighborhood wanted to actually see. Some of the project highlights that kind of we see, we touched on some of them, so I won't go into kind of detail, but these are large lot residential homes, half-acre properties, so minimum half-acre. And most of the lots, there's some irregularity with some of the configuration, but generally speaking, most of the lots are very deep and very wide. All of these lots are 21,000 square feet or greater, and we think that's important. We think that's in conformance with, as Chris kind of alluded to in the staff report and the presentation, some of the adjacencies within specific city of Vista proper. Common area open space, we saw this to be important. Even though a half-acre lot is a lot of land for someone to live on and enjoy, we did see the need to kind of provide some additional common area open space. And in these HOA maintained areas, we have about close to 16,000 square feet of areas where individuals can come out and enjoy kind of the common area open space. We touched base on Vista Grande Drive. Our proposed project is going to dedicate our own land for the widening of that particular road. And again, I think the overall enhancement from a 10 or 12-foot existing width road to a 28-foot wide road is going to provide for better circulation, again, for not only our proposed residents, the surrounding area, but also for fire, police, and life safety first responders. We have, as a requirement of the project, we do have a secondary emergency vehicle apparatus access point, kind of exiting the easterly side of our, entering or exiting the easterly side of our project. And again, I think with the development of our project, I think it's the increased infrastructure capacity, specifically water, because right now water kind of just runs along our southerly boundary of our project. And if you can see the configuration of our project, we obviously go kind of northerly. And with that is going to be the enhancement and increased water lines, water flow, water supply capacity, as well as additional fire hydrants that will kind of go further back north to kind of protect not only our property, but again, the surrounding and adjacent areas at this point in time that won't otherwise be able to be treated from a fire protection standpoint. We touched on the water quality. This is a requirement of any new project that comes up, but what we put forth is, I think, something that is designed for the 100-year flood. We've ran all the different calculations our civil engineer has. We've worked very diligently with city staff and come up with a concept to treat water that we feel is in compliance with current standards and policies. Effectively, what we're doing is collecting the water in multiple different areas. We then treat the water, and then we store the water, and then it gets discharged over a period of time. This obviously, one, cleans up the water before we discharge, and two, it kind of more monitors the flows of how that water is going to get and exit from our site. So the treatment and then the actual storage component of it is something that we feel is a strong benefit for that area, because right now it just kind of existing flows and ultimately kind of erodes some of the adjacent properties. We included in kind of an internal pedestrian circulation. There's a sidewalk that's being proposed throughout the internal streets of our project. Again, more so for common use. This was something we worked with city staff on. We felt it would be important to provide some kind of, again, external pedestrian access for the individuals who live in the area. The landscape, again, is going to be something consistent with the surrounding area. It's going to be a native palette, kind of consistent with what you see out there today. And as we kind of move forward with final design, further plant palettes will get defined, but we do have a preliminary kind of plant palette that is consistent with kind of the overall native vegetation of the area. Right now, along our southerly boundary line, there's an existing overhead power poles that do run across our site, and we have a requirement to underground those overhead power lines. So one, not only that kind of just clean it up from an aesthetics, but also from a fire standpoint. We've seen a lot of fires these days kind of come up off of overhead power lines, whether it's a transformer that's blown, what have you, that can kind of create a potential fire. So by undergrounding those lines, we do feel that it's an important measure to kind of have and to make sure that that happens properly. And then lastly, one of the comments we heard and most recently received an email on today from one of the residents on Vista Grande Drive is just kind of the traffic and the speed in which some of the surrounding residents use to kind of come up Vista Grande Drive. And it's something that we have already kind of known about, addressed, and kind of committed ourselves to at least providing some additional slow down signs throughout Vista Grande Drive as you come up from Morelands to approach not only our site, but some of the existing residents that come up that way. And so it's important for us to make sure that safety is maintained. And so we will make sure there's 15-mile-per-hour signs that kind of go out through the entry point off of Warmlands as you come up Vista Grande Drive to access our project. As it relates to home features, we're in the very early stages of defining what the actual homes will look like. And I know Chris kind of walked through briefly some of the unit mix. But I think a couple of the important things to kind of mention is, one, the actual architecture will be in its best to kind of increase or implement certain elements of the surrounding area to make sure there's some consistency and some conformity with what's currently around the area. Obviously, bringing in the high quality materials, the more efficient materials. Each of the homes will be fire sprinklered. They all have solar capability, all kind of in compliance with current standard data and code. Also, the parking is critically important to us. We took a look at all that to try to figure out how we're going to park this site. And with big garages and large lots, thankfully the lots allow for a lot of that. And with minimum 3-car garages, some of these will have 4-car garages. What I've shown there to kind of illustrate this, and this is just a kind of a typical lot section, if you will. So again, not every lot will follow this, but generally speaking, you'll see that we have about a 38-foot long driveway, 16 feet wide. And so in addition to the 3 or 4-car garage, the driveway is going to park, an additional 4 cars. And as Chris alluded to, I think with a parking count of 196, it definitely far exceeds the actual minimum requirement as stated in the code. And then lastly, again, another important item to us is, all the homes are going to be 1-story. We recognize where the project's at with the topography, and we consider doing 2 stories around certain areas, but in an opportunity or in an effort to try and minimize impacts to scenic views and what have you. Again, all the homes currently proposed are going to be kind of more 1-story ranch style homes. As far as the citywide benefits concerned, we spent very diligent time on this. This is an illustration. I'll walk you through it, but effectively the backstory is we went through the CEQA process and did a technical study on transportation. We analyzed all sorts of different segments in and around the area, both roadway segments as well as intersection segments, and the trip traffic, the average daily traffic trips that our project would produce doesn't provide any additional impact on any of the existing level of service throughout the areas that were studied. And in working through that, and again, and listening to kind of some of the community members as we were going through this process, the big issue here is East Vista Way and Warmlands, and we recognize that. And as we're working with city staff to try to find a way to kind of produce a solution to this, we talked about what is there that opportunity that we can do. And what we've kind of come across is there was a conversation of, well, hey, maybe you guys can contribute an in lieu fee at some point. The city can come back and do this ultimate widening. And we recognize that's a good proposition, but at the end of the day, time is somewhat critical, and we elected to kind of at our own accord really burden ourselves and our project with doing this public improvement. And so what we're committed to doing is along East Vista Way, as you travel northerly on East Vista Way, about 150 feet wide. You'll see we're doing a full ultimate width improvement. This improvement's going to include kind of the connection of the existing pavement, about 18 to 20 feet wide of additional pavement, and then as well as curb, gutter, sidewalk, and landscape improvements. And thanks, Dave. Appreciate that. And this is important to us, and we recognize this isn't going to alleviate all the traffic issues. I guess it's our just kind of fair share contribution to what we think we can do. It provides for definitely a dedicated right turn off of East Vista Way onto Warmlands, which again, we feel is going to alleviate some of the traffic concerns. Is it going to solve the entire issue? Absolutely not. But what we can't commit ourselves to is that we are going to be doing an ultimate improvement. That's not going to be an aloofy. It's not going to be a temporary improvement that's going to get ripped up at some point in time. This improvement's going to stay in perpetuity because it's something that we committed to do. And again, in addition to that, you'll kind of see some of the crosswalks. And one of the comments we made early on with one of the city council members, Joe Green, mentioned was this particular intersection in the public, or the pedestrian safety, if you will. And right now, there's really not much public pedestrian safety. You can actually cross on the north side on East Vista Way, but there's really not even a crosswalk. And so in connection with the widening that we're going to be doing, the 18 or 20 feet of widening, we are going to also enhance the pedestrian travelways. We're going to increase those crosswalks. We're going to fix some of those access ramps to provide for better safety for the pedestrians to cross the street. So again, this is something that we feel is critically important to our project and something that we were committed to early on and really are dedicating ourselves to build something that's of permanence. Kind of lastly, one of the big topics that's come up both in the public review as well as the most recent letter we received from one of the adjacent neighbors is this, the emergency access road effectively. And when we kind of review the letter that was provided to us, we kind of broke it down to a couple of different ways in which we interpreted it. One is, that the access road is going to be, Vista Grande Terrace Drive, which abuts our property to the east, which is where our secondary emergency apparatus access is from, is going to be used for temporary construction traffic. And that's just not the case. We have no intent to use Vista Grande Terrace Drive for any construction activities. Once we start development, we'll be putting up a perimeter fence around the entire development, which would exclude anyone from being able to come in and access the project site off of Vista Grande Terrace Drive. Further, we commit ourselves to putting together a traffic circulation plan to make sure that we know where all the means and methods are going to be with respect to coming in and out from a construction activity standpoint. And we're also going to educate our trade partners. We're going to make sure they know where and how to come in. We're going to make sure there's proper signage and so that no one comes up Vista Grande Terrace Drive. And we're willing to commit ourselves to putting that and making that a condition of approval. I don't think it's clearly stated in our current draft conditions, but we as applicants think that's important because, again, it's something that we think we can do and accommodate, and it just makes perfect sense because we recognize and respect kind of the surrounding adjacent, property owners. In addition to that, there was the second topic that we kind of, derived from the letter that was provided was this, Vista Grande Terrace Drive being used as in an emergency situation. And, we further dove into this and what our obligations are from a project and what the fire code currently states. And one, we feel that, the code, the way it states is that we are obligated to provide secondary fire apparatus access. And so what that means is we got to provide a secondary means for a fire truck or a fire apparatus to come up and access our site. And the current access road as designed meets all the standards with respect to widths. It meets all the standards with respect to a street section that could accommodate 75,000 pound apparatus. And the intent, the objective is that we're not just going to start sending people down Vista Grande Terrace Drive. Again, it definitely 100% won't be used for any kind of normal everyday course of operational activity. The gate or the actual road is going to be gated. And from a security port, kind of as the third topic is, it's going to be gated, locked, and keyed. And the fire department and the sheriff's department, they'll be the only ones who have the ability to open up those gates. So, when we have had some conversations with the fire department and understanding what that requirement would be, and with where we're at with respect to a fire severity zone, we strongly believe in our interpretation of the code is that we are obligated to provide a secondary means of access for fire apparatus. And nowhere in the code, at least in our interpretation, does it require us to kind of define the means and methods of how an evacuation may or may not take place. That's obviously going to be up to the professionals, the fire department, the sheriff's department to determine how that's all going to happen. And in an event where there is an evacuation need and there's a fire, they're going to do what they need to do to obviously protect and serve and save structures and save lives. And so we feel our project as currently proposed meets the obligations of the fire code. It meets the secondary fire apparatus access. And again, it will be gated, and the only group or individuals who have the ability to unlock those gates will be the fire department. Lastly, just to kind of close in project summary again, want to just appreciate and thank you guys for the time to allow me to present. What we are proposing is, again, 28 1/2 acre lots. We feel we have a balanced site with respect to some of the adjacent infrastructure we're adding to from a capacity standpoint. Obviously, I think our regional benefit with respect to East Vista Way is something that is very solid for us to do for 28 1/2 acre lots. And again, as we move forward, we're going to continue to kind of listen through the final design stages and really refine our current concepts and make sure that they are, one, not only in conformance with the city standards and ordinances, but also kind of hold true to our word and make sure that as the project progresses, we'll be able to kind of incorporate some of those different elements that we had talked about today. So again, thank you guys so much for your time, and I really appreciate it.
Very good. Commissioners, any questions of staff or the applicant? Commissioner Grimm?
Yeah, I had one for the applicant and then one for staff. My question for the applicant is that you mentioned they're all going to be one story, and I think a lot can be said about, having one story units there. Are you guys willing to lock into a condition on that?
Yeah. How's that going to be assured?
Yeah, that's something we would consider doing. Yes, as currently proposed. Obviously we try to balance what the marketplace wants, and at this current place in time, that is something that we want to do, and I think we're committed to doing that. So yeah, that would be something we'd be considered to do.
And it could be a mix, but
yeah, I think we'd be willing to kind of commit to. I think we'd definitely be willing to commit to 100%, the majority of it definitely being single story. If there is some modulation as far as there might be a couple here or there, but right now our current intent is to do 100% single story.
And then my question for staff was on the parking, and I just want to make sure I understand the math on the parking. Basically, there's 28 units. They have 3 garages. If you multiply that, that's 84 spaces. Although, if you're giving credit for 3 units, three spaces on one of those properties, a lot of times one of those garage units is used for storage. It's not used for, for cars. It varies. I mean, it depends. So let's say that you gave a credit of 4 spaces per site or per resident. That would come up to 92 spaces, which would still be short. If you used 6 credits of parking per lot, that would be 108, which would still be short of the 126 required. So the developer is showing 7 spaces per lot, and that 7 reaches the 126 spaces that are required. And there's also a 196 listed as the project plans indicate the development would provide a total of 196 spaces. I'm assuming that was meant to be 126. Anyway,
is that for me? I'm sorry.
No, that's
Okay.
for staff. So my question, I guess it's a statement, but I guess I want to make sure that I understand it. So each lot there would get a credit of 7 spaces because of the garages and apparently a certain amount in the driveway.
That's correct. That's how the applicant is proposing it. And 7 spaces by 28 lots, you wind up with that 196 number. If there's potentially 3-car garages in each residence, generally you're going to have a 30 to 35 foot driveway, 16 feet wide. You can fit 2 cars side by side on a 16 feet width. If you have a driveway that's at least approximately 32 to 35 feet, potentially you have 4 cars in that driveway in addition to 3-car.
Right, but that's totally under the control of the ownership, right? Anyway, that was just a question. I have some issues with that I can talk about when we get to that stage. But thank you for answering that.
Commissioner Looney?
Yes, thank you. One question for applicant, one question for staff. On the common areas, it was listed in the calculations that we've got about 16,000 feet of common space. It appears that the common space are the decomposed granite walkways. There's really nothing else on the on the proposed grading plan that I see that has common open space. Is that correct?
Sure. So the areas in question, there's 4 of them that have it. And again, it does total about 16,000 square feet. And while there is a DG path, there's also additional landscape, drought tolerant landscape that's in and around that area. I mean, a DG path at 4 feet wide in those areas is going to be a minimal a minimal actual accounting of size in relation to the overall area. So yeah, no, there is a DG path with some benches, but there also is additional just open space with greenery and drought tolerant landscape in addition to that.
So are those open spaces from, again, I'm looking at the grading plan prepared by Pasco.
Sure.
Those open spaces then are easements on the individual lots?
They'll be deed restricted that would require, yes, they're deed restricted. So there's going to be requirements in the CCNRs that require certain landscape palettes to meet HOA maintained.
Okay, so if I buy a half-acre lot, there's deed restrictions that limit me not to use the full half-acre because it's common space to the community.
For a couple of the lots, correct.
Okay. Thank you. For staff, looking at the landscape plan and looking at the grading plan, it appears that the proposed landscape plan is basically planting the graded slopes and nothing else. Is that a correct evaluation? Am I seeing a grading plan correct?
That's correct. It's for the graded slopes, street trees, frontage areas, the stormwater management areas. Each individual owner would be able to develop their own landscaping.
Except for those graded slopes.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Aguilar?
Yeah, I have one for the applicant and one for staff. Sidewalks, I understand, are going to be internal, but what about on Vista Grande? Will there be sidewalks added?
Yeah, so on Vista Grande Drive, kind of on the, I'll say the northerly right-of-way side, kind of the internal circulation, you take Vista Grande Drive on the north side and kind of loop around all around that way. That's where the sidewalk will be. It's currently proposed. So pretty much on one side of Vista Grande Drive, which is on the north
Your
side.
side, yeah.
Correct. And then all throughout the.
And how far down will that go?
It goes from our project entrance all the way, the whole, kind of you follow the existing, or the proposed loop road, pretty much mirrors that exact configuration.
From here to here, yeah. So my next question is for staff. So there's a project, I'm not sure where it's at anymore, because since I've dropped off council, that I'm not as involved, but how close is this to the Kawano properties?
The Kawano property is just in the north.
What does that mean?
Adjacent.
Is it adjacent or?
Correct.
Okay. Because I know that project was proposing much larger average lot sizes. So I'm just thinking about transitioning from one project to the next. I know that just south of this project, a lot of the properties are half acre. It's a couple of 1 acres and that here and there, but I think like Prince Way, all those properties I believe are half acre, right?
That's correct.
But I know Kawano was proposing much larger properties, like averaging an acre or 2 even. I think averaging an acre on theirs. So I'm not sure where that is. Can you tell us where that?
I'll need to ask if our director or city planner might chime in on that project for us.
I'm looking at Mr. Chung, so I'm not sure that it's appropriate for us to talk about a project that's in process. I can certainly update you where we're at, but I'd like to get confirmation from the assistant city attorney.
Yeah, I think we can update Commissioner Aguilera on this.
So basically, in answer to your question, Commissioner, the project is still in review process. They have not resubmitted back into staff, and still working through environmental issues at this point.
Because whatever we approve or city council approves eventually will probably influence that developer and what they want to do as well. So I just like everybody to keep that in mind. That's all I have for right now.
Commissioner Garrettson?
Yes, I know the existing, shall we say, the 20% of the neighbors to the southwest is zoned 1 way, and the rest of them are zoned 1 acre. So 3/4 of the neighbors are zoned 1 acre lots. Do you have anything that would show what the actual size of the neighboring properties are?
Thank you, Commissioner. We've prepared an exhibit that will show a lot size for a sampling of the properties. You might be able to advance it faster. This is working a little slow. So this exhibit shows the property site. The project, the properties adjacent, mostly adjacent, immediately adjacent to the site that are 1 acre or larger are shown in the yellow numbers, which designates the acreage for those individual lots. The acres or the areas that are highlighted in blue to the south of the project site show most of the half-acre lots in that area. To the right of the project site, somewhat in an orange overlay, there's a variety of lot sizes ranging from 0.7 to 1.7 acres. At the north end of that, there's a handful of lots that are all 1 acre. And sampling some sites to the south where the 24 lots are shown, they vary from 0.6 to 1.2 acres in size.
So everything north of the property is 1 acre zoned.
Most properties north of the site are going to be 2 acres and larger as you go to the north or to the northeast.
So if this is basically a two property or 2 houses per acre, it really only fits about 30% of the neighborhood. The rest of the neighborhood has less density.
Except it's undeveloped.
When I did a rough look at the numbers, as far as the situation of where those lots are located, yes, the half-acre lots are predominantly towards the southern side of the property. If you do an actual lot count, it's going to come out about 50-50, roughly looking at it, for lots that are half-acre versus lots that are larger in size. Obviously, as you move out from the project site, the farther you get to the east and the north, you're going to be hitting the larger lots. The farther you go south and to the west, you're going to be hitting the smaller lot sizes. It's about equal, roughly.
So my concern is this a fit for this area? Thank you.
Commissioner Savage, Hastings, questions? Commissioner Savage?
Yeah, this is questions for the applicant. Just regarding the vegetation, I noticed that you mentioned that you guys planned on using native vegetation, trying to be consistent with the agricultural look out there. Inside of the properties, what latitude is the HOA going to have on controlling what vegetation the homeowners have there?
Yeah, I think within the CCNRs, we're going to, predicate certain plant palettes that will be required and obligated to be consistent with the overall plantings that the HOA is going to own and maintain. So I think within these CCNRs is where it's really going to be kind of designated or stated what certain types of plants in the palette that would be planted in front yards and so forth.
Is that something that we can request be involved in this? Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, it sounds like you guys have the right plan. I just want to make sure it's in writing.
Yeah, I think it just behooves us as a development to make sure there's consistency too. It'd be weird to have, some of the HOA maintained areas have a completely different palette, but understand the concern and question. So thank you for it.
If they put it in their CCNRs, the staff is, there's a condition that requires the staff to review the CCNRs, so those things can be addressed there.
So that'll be a future approval. So great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I have a couple of questions. On one of the exhibits, I believe it's sheet 5 of your tentative map application, it shows Vista Grande as a public street easement. It was a paper street. It's been that way since 1956, according to the information your engineer provided. Why are you changing from a public street for Vista Grande to a private street?
For us, when we looked at it, we kind of took just from an overall maintenance standpoint. It was something kind of through some preliminary conversation with staff, just kind of understanding who's going to ultimately own and maintain that. And we wanted to take it on as a private development so that we can take that, monetary or fiscal issue off of both the city and the county, who both have easement rights at this point in time through that from a public right-of-way standpoint. So it was really just the ability to kind of remove it from the overall circulation of the public entity being that where it's located is not really a through thoroughfare. And so we kind of felt that it made most sense to kind of make it a private road.
Okay. Now, you're going to have a street maintenance agreement that all of your homeowners will participate in. Will they be maintaining the street in front of the homes on the south side of Vista Grande?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be an obligation through the CCNRs and the HOA dues for the 28 proposed homes.
I would encourage you to take a strong look at that document when you prepare it.
Yes, sir.
I can tell you 35 years later, some of the new residents on my street aren't so happy about having to go back and maintain the street. So anyway, one question about the East Vista Way improvements. It was my understanding, because of site distance, that intersection needed to be lowered. And you're proposing to put in ultimate improvements on the southeast corner.
Yeah.
And you've said that those are going to be ultimate. How's that going to work with the site distance requirement coming
Yeah.
over the hill?
Yeah, good question. So we've taken some of that into consideration. We've done some initial surveys and understandings of the different logistics and the geometrics of that particular area. And based on kind of the initial framework, and again, we will get further into final design to really define the specificity of it. But based on the initial look from the survey shots and the elevations, we feel that we can kind of do whatever necessary earthworks required to make sure there's a natural kind of transition from that to what our ultimate improvements will be.
Okay, very good. Okay, that ends my questions. Commissioners, any other questions of the applicant or staff? Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys for your time. Appreciate it.
I will now open the public hearing. The first speaker slip that I have is for Bob Garrison. And then, since we have a number of speakers tonight, I'm going to ask you to get prepared. And the next speaker will be Ms. Sack. So if you'll prepare to join us. Everyone will get 3 minutes except Ms. Sack. So the green light comes on. When the yellow light comes on, we ask you to start summarizing and finish up when the red light comes on.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Okay.
All right, so I'm Bob Garrison, and my address is 1151 Duria Avenue in Irvine, California. I'm a partner with Greg on this property. And thank you for your time, Chair and Commissioners. Really appreciate it. Key for us was to come down here with a full open communication style, which is what we do every time when we meet with people. And we've spent a lot of time meeting with the community and the neighbors, and also with the council members. And we've appreciated the opportunity to listen to them. I can remember on the 3rd of December last year, one of the very first things we heard at our first community meeting, our first neighborhood meeting out on the property was, hey, fire is a big issue to us. And so one of the things that we knew would be critical, pay attention to that. In the property itself, in its raw condition, it is a fire concern, definitely. Also, the road, which Greg has already shown you in the slides, a concern. Fire trucks can't get up, and the only way back out is to back down. The other thing that we've done, and will obviously have to do with the new development, would be to provide fire hydrants and additional firefighting ability there. The other thing that's required by the fire department is this secondary emergency fire apparatus access only. And that's something that we're doing. And the benefit to that is, and it's absolutely responding to the concern that was voiced to us by the neighbors, was fire life safety. Fire life safety. And so what that does is it provides our immediate area there off Vista Grande with additional firefighting capabilities to the fire department. And it also, because fire and the first responders have access to open the gates, gives the opportunity for people to the east of our area onto Vista Grande Terrace, the opportunity to have some additional life safety handled by the fire department, because they can also fight fires beyond with not just one access of Vista Grande Terrace. So we really feel good about that. The other thing that we heard about was traffic. And the one that we kept hearing about was East Vista Way and Warmwoods. And Greg has mentioned that. We've gone over and above, and we rightfully so have done something that we said we would do. And we said, we're going to do something to improve that for you, and it's on our back. And it is. and we're paying for it. So I just wanted to tell you that we've made the effort and we continue to stay in touch with people and listen openly. And thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, let me know.
Sure will. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Garrison. Ms. Sack, and followed by Hayden Davis. Ms. Davis, if you'll get prepared to join us. The floor is yours. 12 minutes.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Dr. Ursula Sack, and I'm the Secretary of Guahomie Alliance for Responsible Development, also known as GARD. Our organization advocates for the preservation of agricultural land and the semi-rural environment in the north part of Vista and the surrounding unincorporated county. We are not against development, but as our name suggests, we are advocating for responsible development. I'm also a homeowner on Vista Grande Terrace, directly downhill from this proposed development project. I and my neighbors and dogs have been walking on this property for decades, and we highly value the land. Tonight, I'm representing myself, my lovely husband, Joe Kreml, and my good neighbors, Dr. Elisa Willens-Davis and Paula Colby. We thank you for granting our request. The overriding question here is whether the general plan should be amended to increase the density on this property to allow the 28 homes instead of the current zoning of 14 homes. We have heard city officials say that there must be a substantial benefit to the citizens of Vista in order to amend the general plan. If that is the case, then the appropriate vote on this project is no. Anyone who studies the general plan will recognize that this project violates a number of fundamental and crucial principles of the plan. Let's start with a basic fact. The developer told us surrounding neighbors, the reason the owners are requesting increased density is that the property has not sold because the developer cannot make enough money with 14 homes. Now, this is a troubling situation. Is the city making land use decisions based on real estate market conditions? We don't recall seeing such a policy in the general plan. Does the city have such a policy? We certainly hope not. It would lead to a very slippery slope and be detrimental to the integrity of this body. The benefits of developing the property, as they've said, include road and water drainage improvements along a small stretch of Vista Grande Drive, underground utilities along that same stretch, and the right turn lane added on East Vista Way. What the developers here have failed to mention is that those improvements are conditional on any project built on this land. In other words, those benefits are not unique to this 28-home proposal. They will be provided under the current 14-home zoning. So rezoning gives no substantial benefit to the citizens of Vista, and therefore, there is no need to amend the general plan. Let's talk about the other side of the coin. What are the negative consequences of rezoning this land? Now the word substantial comes into play because the negative consequences are substantial. They are in violation of many fundamental and crucial general plan policies. The general plan was developed with the input of many Vista citizens, and one priority stands out like a golden thread woven throughout the document. It is the first item in the general plan guiding principles. Quote, create a balanced plan that preserves and enhances Vista's distinctive semi-rural neighborhoods. The land use and community identity element states that its policies, quote, demonstrates the city's value and commitment to preserving and enhancing the unique character treasured by Vista's residents. Policy 2.1 says, quote, maintain the existing residential character of Vista, characterized by large lot, single-family residential development, by encouraging land uses and intensities of development that are consistent with this. Now, the mitigated negative declaration that you're considering tonight admits that the proposed project does not consist of large lot, single-family development, but nevertheless goes on to conclude that the project, quote, maintains consistency with the existing semi-rural environment. This could not be further from the truth. The 28-home proposal urbanizes the area with a gated community of large estate homes for the wealthy, with wide streets, sidewalks, curbs, one-story homes, thank you, and street lights, all of which are incompatible with the open country feel of the adjoining properties. Take a look. The development is not rural in nature. It has no agriculture, no orchards, no community gardens, no provision for livestock. The amount of open space is minimal. I mean, they're basically pocket parks. And its houses will dominate the skyline at the top of a hill, destroying daytime blue sky views and nighttime dark skies that are characteristics of the surrounding semi-rural and agricultural lands. An analysis of the surrounding land uses was conducted in an M&D developed in 2016 when annexation was up. The planned 14 homes yielded a density of 1.2 units per acre. And the M&D concluded that this would be consistent with the majority of surrounding land uses. The surrounding land uses have not changed. So it is clear that half-acre lots would not be consistent, even though the current M&D makes that claim. So let's be real. Destroying the semi-rural environment here is a significant violation of the general plan and a violation of the will of the Vista citizens who overwhelmingly support protecting and enhancing semi-rural community character. Some pictures. I had some. Okay. There's a photo here. Oh, before that, as you can see, the property is almost entirely surrounded by unincorporated county land, designated rural residential, which is 1 acre lot sizes. This is required in the general plan so that any annexations of sphere of influence properties be, quote, consistent with the county to protect the rural nature of the outlying areas. Therefore, increasing the density on this land would be another violation of general plan policies. Okay, now the 3 more pictures. As you can see in these photos, the property is on the highest hill in the area. The proposed homes will be built on the ridgeline, and this represents another significant violation of the general plan. Multiple Lucy policies address this issue. Quote, protect the visual continuity of the hillsides, discourage development on skyline ridges, preserve ridges and hilltops in a natural state. Development should be sited such that buildings do not project above the natural landform, and so on. The homes on the east side in particular will loom over the existing homes on our street. Then there's the next photo, shows the north, this isn't it, that one. This shows the property northeast, and at the top of on the left side on the top of the hill there is the top of the subject property. You can see how steep that hill is leading up to the property, and did you notice all the brush? If a wildfire started in this area, the Santa Ana winds would come from the northeast direction, and you can imagine the rest. We all know how devastating California fires have been. A number of homeowners in the area have lost their fire insurance. More houses on the hilltop would mean more fuel to burn and make it easier for a fire to jump from one house to another. Speaking of emergency, the extension of Vista Grande Drive to meet our street, Vista Grande Terrace, our street is a private road on county land maintained by the residents. Now, the emergency gate will be there, but the problem is this: our street is the only way in and out for me and my neighbors. If there's an emergency and families on Vista Grande Drive are evacuating onto Vista Grande Terrace, the resulting congestion could prevent us, me and my neighbors, from fleeing our homes. I happen to live at the very end of that road. A question still has not been answered, whether the city has the jurisdiction to designate our private road for emergency purposes without obtaining the permission of the easement holders. Let's address another issue at this point. I can hear lots of you thinking, but California needs to build housing. Please put the crucial missing word into that thought: We need, first and foremost, to provide affordable housing for lower wage, working, and middle-class families. These homes will cost north of $1 million. And so what does the general plan say about housing needs in Vista? Fortunately, we have fresh information on that question because, as you know, the housing element was just revised. And again, public input was essential to the endeavor. When Ms. Chow presented the results at a city council meeting, she told us the news was good. Why? Because, quote, public comments received at the meeting focused on support for a housing plan that does not require upzoning of existing lower density residential areas. The city was able to meet regional housing needs allocation goals without upzoning existing lower density areas as requested. The last photo then. One last but crucial issue, and I'm so glad you brought up the Kawano farm. The Strawberry Hill Farm, 300 acres of fertile farmland, is immediately north of this property. That land has been designated by the state of California as prime farmland, farmland of local importance, farmland of statewide importance, and so on. The owner has applied to the city, as we talked about, to pave over the farm and build estate homes. The impact of this project on that land must be considered. Now, in the past, when we've brought up the impact of a proposed development on adjacent land, we're told that each project stands alone and neighboring land cannot be considered. But there's a huge double standard here. When city officials vote to approve higher density projects, they justify their votes by pointing to nearby properties that have higher density. The impact on 300 acres of prime farmland must be of primary consideration here, because I can tell you, as sure as my hair is turning gray, that in the near future, someone will be standing here saying, well, there are half-acre lots on the Vista Grande Drive property, so you should approve half-acre lots on the Kawano farm. We hope you recognize that the benefits of this proposed development are far outweighed by the many negative consequences. If you are considering approval of this general plan amendment, we ask that you require the developers to make adjustments in the design to address the many concerns that have been raised. We request a reduction in the number of homes so that they can be built below the ridgeline. We request that the homes along the eastern boundary be moved to the west so that they are not looming above our houses, and that an open space, real open space, green belt be established there. We envision landscaping with mature trees that remain green year-round for a privacy screen. I'm almost done. Can I finish? And year-round for a privacy screen with an actual walking trail, not a sidewalk, for use of the residents of the project. And we would ask that pedestrian gates be provided so that long-term neighbors on our street could walk the Greenbelt Trail and access the Water Authority property to the north in order to continue their exercise in the open space available there. Thank you.
Thank you for keeping it to the time limit. Hayden Davis, followed by Chip Halsey. Mr. Davis? Is
Hello?
it
Yes,
Hayden?
yes, it is.
I'm sorry. The only other Hayden I know is a female, so I apologize.
Thank you for clarifying. Hello, my name is Hayden Davis. My wife, Elisa, and I own a home at 2350 Vista Grande Terrace, directly adjacent to the proposed development. We also own an apartment complex in downtown Vista, so we are not unsympathetic to the rights of property owners who want to develop their property. However, with these rights also come responsibilities. To help all of us realize our responsibilities to the larger community, the City of Vista developed a very thoughtful and forward-looking Vista General Plan 2030, a group of goals, policies, ground rules in a sense, that should be used to guide development. The land use and community identity portion of the general plan, abbreviated LUCI, L-U-C-I, provides goals and directions that are intended to provide guidance for responsible development. Sadly, The proposed project ignores or violates many of these provisions. Here are just 3 illustrative examples. Lucy 2.1, maintain the existing residential character of Vista, but the proposed development would embed a gated community containing million-dollar homes in the middle of a semi-rural environment. The next 2 provisions are also simply ignored. Lucy 2.9, prohibit mass grading to protect the visual continuity of the hillsides. Lucy 2.10, discourage development on skyline ridges. Fully half of the Lucy policies are not met by the current proposal. The proposed project simply disregards many of the plan's guiding principles, which, if allowed to stand unchallenged, call into question the integrity and credibility of the general plan. The developers of this proposed project are asking for the general plan to be amended because they can make a higher profit if they build 28 instead of 14 homes. Property owners do deserve to make a profit on their investment, but their vision can't be so transfixed on the profit that they lose sight of everything else by simply ignoring provisions of the general plan they don't like. In conclusion, while the fairest outcome would be to allow the current zoning to stand, resulting in the project consisting of 14, not 28 homes, fair-minded people can reach compromise that all parties can agree to. One possible compromise is to remove 4 or 5 of the proposed homes, ones that encroach upon existing homes, and use that land to create a green zone that could be enjoyed by the larger community. I'm sure other compromises exist as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Halsley, followed by Mr. Gifford.
Good evening, Commissioners. Chip Hasley with Park Row Properties in San Diego. I'm here tonight in support of the applicant and the project before you. I was the original applicant for the 14 lots, so I'm available to answer any questions you might have about that process. We believe that the current project before you is a much better plan than the one we had. It's compatible with the half-acre zoning in Vista, which is immediately adjacent to the property to the south. We believe it's going to provide some needed move-up housing for the city of Vista, which, and I drive around, I see a lot of apartments and condos built, and I think this will provide a needed product for the Vista community. And I think it's more responsive to the home buyer market than a 1-acre lot, which is significantly larger, much more expensive to maintain and build. A half-acre lot, to me, is an extremely large lot. I live more into the city area, and a 5,000, 6,000 square foot lot is standard, and for most Californians, I believe. So a half-acre lot is 4 times that big. So the discussions about these being small lots, just doesn't make sense to me. So I would encourage your support of the project tonight. I noticed in some of the comments that came up in the project when we first came before you in 2017, the Kawano project does share a small area of contiguous ownership on the northeast corner of the property, but there's no continuity between those 2 projects. There's a 100-foot water line easement between the 2 properties that has a major distribution line in it. Beyond that, the elevation change is significant. It has to be well over 100 feet between the top of the property, the subject property, and the Kawano property. So there's no continuity there between those 2 projects at all. There was a comment about the homes looming over the properties to the east. As I recall, the zoning in that area requires a minimum 50-foot rear yard easement. So on a 1-story house, 50 feet back from the top of the slope there, and then a 1-story house there, I don't think that's going to provide a looming quality that was mentioned earlier. I think you will find that to be the case. And many of the homes that are up in that area, they're on 1 acre and larger lots, are on 1 acre and larger lots because there's no sewer access for those properties. They all have septic, and that requires a significant area there on their lots to provide for the septic. So that's the main reason why those lots are an acre and larger. So we look for hope for your support tonight. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Is it Mariko? Mariko Gifford, followed by David Thor.
I plan to take us in a little bit different direction. My name is Mariko Gifford. I actually am a resident at 2277 Vista Grande Drive. My husband has been there for 44 years. I can say probably nobody in this room has been at the same place that long. Each time this property was bought, it was for the purpose of developing houses. And each time the market fell and the project was never developed. Eventually the property was sold again. This will be the 5th time the property has been sold since he's been there. And then this is the first time that the potential new buyers have required the tenants to vacate as a condition of the sale. In consideration of this project, there are hidden values that need consideration. The first is CO2 absorption. The state of California protects oak trees, but each city is responsible for their policy. Vista has only a permit process, but does nothing to actually protect oak trees. I implore you and the city of Vista to update your policy to reflect the importance of all trees, especially the magnificent oak. There are 4 beautiful oak trees here. I have estimated the ages using an online formula. 4 oak trees with a circumference of 95 inches, 40 inches, 34 inches, and 33 have approximate ages of 151 years, 64 years, 54 years, and 53 years of age. The combined ability to absorb CO2 is 12,096 pounds per year. The second hidden value is oxygen production. A mature leafy tree produces as much oxygen in a season as 4 people need to inhale in a year. The 4 trees could produce oxygen for 40 people per year. The third hidden value is a microclimate. This property is in a microclimate bordering Strawberry Hill, where strawberries grow year-round, adjacent to Exotica, where rare and endangered fruit trees grow. People can live in many other places. Climates are fixed and should be treasured. The fourth hidden value is carbon sequestration through carbon farming. This hidden value requires future thinking for future farming, maintaining this land as an agricultural zone. Carbon farming implements agricultural practices known to improve the rate at which CO2 is sequestered. These practices increase the rate at which carbon is taken from the atmosphere and locked away into plant material and or soil organic matter. Soil sequestration in the soil is 46% of total terrestrial carbon. That means that all of the carbon on the planet is 46% of it is in the ground. According to the Salk Institute, every year plants and other photosynthetic life lock in 19 gigatons of CO2. If we converted all global croplands and pastures to regenerative organic agriculture, we could sequester more than 100% of current annual CO2 emissions, the Rodell Institute. Weighing the value: to absorb 12,096 pounds of CO2 per year, to preserve the 4 oak trees that produce oxygen for 40 people per year, to invest in the future by maintaining all our valuable farming zone, to assign a high value to the microclimate that is irreplaceable, to promote and implement carbon farming to do Vista's part in climate change reversal by maintaining the agricultural zone, or build multi-million-dollar homes for 28 people. Thank you.
Mr. Thor, followed by Michael Memory.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. My name is David Thor. My wife and I have lived on the hill for 23 years. As Lisa says, she's been there for 32 years. So we've seen a lot of changes happening in the area. And I want to thank the Merle Development Company for actually being very interactive with the 7 homes that are really going to be most impacted by this decision that is before you today. I'm going to be very brief, not a lot of facts, but over the years, we have seen many vehicles come up our street, very degraded, no turnaround, and they seem to turn around right in front of our house because we're near the very end, and we have a slight ridge right there. And over the last 5 years, we've had 4 tow trucks having to come up at the end of that street, lifting cars off of our easement back onto the road. So it is a dangerous situation up in that area right there. We are going to be very appreciative of the new underground utilities. We're going to be very appreciative of the fire break that this is going to provide us. And really, that's about it. I think it's a safety and fire issue for us, and we appreciate this project. Thank you so much.
One question for
Yes.
you. You live on the south side of Vista
Yes, we do.
Grande across from the project?
Yes, on the half-acre lots.
You have a septic system?
Yes, we do.
Did you discuss with the applicant the possibility of hooking up to the sewer?
They are all in favor of doing stub outs for all those homes that are on sewer, so that in the future, if we wanted to go into the sewer system, we could do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And the other thing that was mentioned here a couple of times is everybody's afraid of a gated community that's happening here. That is the thing that we have discussed with them, but they have come back to us and said that they are not going to be able to do a gated community. So this is going to be a private road, but it will be open to the public.
I had that question for staff when we were done. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Michael, followed by Denise.
I'll cover for Denise.
Okay.
So I'm just going to highlight the traffic and safety concerns that I have. If we just do the quick math, 3 and 4 garage homes imply 84 cars at a minimum, 112 cars at a maximum. This doesn't factor in, the UPS, Amazon deliveries, which occur many times per day per home. So you get a big increase in traffic given there is no additional thoroughfare. Along those lines, who will maintain the remainder of Vista Grande Drive that doesn't face the property that will be materially impacted by this increased traffic? Lastly, current residents walk, run, bike on the entirety of Vista Grande Drive every day without traffic. So having no current sidewalks is tolerable today under the current state. Will sidewalks be featured along the entirety of Vista Grande Drive, not just facing the property? Under the existing setup, 14 homes, traffic and safety issues would degrade from current levels. Under the new proposal, 28 homes, these issues would degrade significantly.
Thank you. And
Should we ask Denise if she's been covered for or not?
Oh, okay. I'm a little slow on the uptake tonight. I understand. And then finally, Mickey Shatters. Mickey?
I'm Mickey Sanders. Thank you for holding this meeting. My wife and I bought our home in 1985 at 2215 Vista Grande Drive. My concern is traffic, what's going to happen to us, the sewer line. We're part of the county. We're not in the city yet. But at some point, we're going to be annexed. And at some point, you're going to say you have to hook up to the sewer line. So you're going to have, I'm 100 feet from Vista Grande Terrace. Who's going to pay for that trench that's going to go through my neighbor's driveway to attach me to the sewer? Me? I've watched this in other communities where they've come in, outlawed septic because it was part of the city plan, and the cost for the trench and the plumbing and the hookup is phenomenal. So, you're going to bring this in and then you're going to say, oh, you're only 77, you're going to die pretty quick. That's true. No doubt about it. But I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm looking at reality. How much is it going to cost my heirs to hook up to the stinking sewer system? Nobody has an answer for that, do you? Because you haven't thought about it. And so this system that's coming in it doesn't hold with the city plan. And the reality is, you guys have the vote to change it, and I'm sure you will. Contrary to what we say, what we believe, what we would like to see happen. Contrary to the changes that have come in our community. We're not going to be an ag community any longer. We're going to look just like Orange County, which was an ag community. We're going to look like Bozeman, Montana, which was an ag community. We're going to look like Lake Tahoe, which was an ag community. That's not progress. So anyway, I just think that it's something that you should consider. And the last thing is, you're going to have half-acre homes, lots, that can have support 6,000, 7,000 square feet of lawn. What are you going to do to mitigate the use of water? We don't have any water anymore. You know, you look at the state of California. So thank you, and that's my part.
Thank you. That concludes all of the speaker slips that I have tonight. Is there anyone else that wishes to address the commission on this project before I close the public hearing? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed, and I will open it up to commissioner discussion. Commissioner Looney.
Question for staff. The point that was just made, where if a property is within the county and they connect to city sewer, from my experience, that county property has to be annexed to the city. That's the only way they can hook up to sewer.
Yes. All right. While the rest of them are thinking, the policy question I guess I have for staff is half-acre lots, semi-rural.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. Under the city's general plan, half-acre lots are considered semi-rural.
Okay, very good. And there'll be half-acre lots zoned E1. Off the top of your head, Chris, do you remember what animals can be allowed on a half-acre lot?
I have a list here. Half-acre lots can support one horse, a sheep or a female goat, and a few other llamas and things
so
like that.
Large livestock is allowed on a half-acre lot?
Yes.
Although with million-dollar homes, who knows?
There are limitations on where they properly kept on the property.
There's setbacks and for the corrals.
To avoid
and
nuisance conditions.
All
yes.
right. Very good. Commissioner Aguilera.
Thank you. So my question is in regards to, I guess I need some clarification for how SB 9 might apply to these properties once they are built. What would be allowed on these properties?
Is that regarding the lot split? I might need to look to the director who's been tracking the latest law changes.
Doing some research on SB 9. So SB 9 is available to the owner of the lot. As the subdivider and the developer, if this project were to move forward, they would be responsible for developing the lots in accordance with what's approved. If future owners purchase the lot, they could then split the lot no greater than 60-40 and build a duplex on each lot under SB 9. That would be required that the developer build the subdivision, complete all the improvements, sell the lot to a private owner who then would split the lot and do the subsequent development. My understanding from this developer, and it's not guaranteed, is that they are in contract with a homeowner that would actually build the development as proposed. So I don't think they're planning to sell the lots individually.
But once they purchase the home,
Yes.
it's built, they purchase the home, the owner of that property could split the lot.
Only if adequate access is provided for a secondary lot, which would be difficult to assume in the case that's
But we don't know.
proposed.
Right.
There are some lots that may be able to be splittable, but they'd have to have a full accessible, location onto the second lot. They could build a second unit on
They
the
all
lot.
could do
Or
ADUs,
an
all right?
ADU,
Yeah.
under the law, that would be permitted.
So that's whether there's fire access or not.
Correct.
Could be looking at double.
They have the ability to do that under the state law, that's correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Looney.
Thank you. Coming back to your question of livestock on a half acre, 7 of the 26 lots that are being proposed are designed and graded such that they're about 60 feet wide. And lots 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26, you're not going to get much buildable area. You've got a half acre, but the buildable area is very small. Lot 26, by the time you take your building setbacks out off of that property, you've got about a 45-foot wide lot to build on. So some of these lots are not conducive to having any livestock on them because the buildable pad just is not there.
Very good. Commissioner Grimm.
Yeah, first off, I just wanted to thank the neighbors for coming in. It's a very, very organized presentation, and every point that was made, is a solid and a good point. And I agree with a lot of it. There are some things I don't agree with, though, and I'm going to go through those fairly quickly. First off, I think, there's some question in some people's minds what a general plan is. And a general plan is meant to be a dynamic document. It's constantly moving. It's not meant to be something that's read like an ordinance. And, that kind of comes into question with the zoning, and is the zoning compatible with surrounding land use? And, I personally, and I think Commissioner Roster made the point that it's a semi-rural area, half-acre zoning, and I think half-acre zoning is obviously compatible with other half-acre lots, but it's also compatible with 1-acre lots or 2-acre lots, at least in my opinion. And with regard to a point made about housing and need for affordable housing, I think I've served on the Planning Commission for probably about 2.5 years, and almost every project that we've had on the Planning Commission has been either an apartment, a condominium, or a small lot. And really, there hasn't been much developed in the way of larger lots. And, somebody mentioned, $1 million housing. Well, right now, $1 million doesn't mean very much. My daughter has a small house in Shadow Ridge, and it's worth, I guess, close to $1 million. At least that's what she tells me. So, it's well, the other factor there too is that the fact that at least the developers indicated, and whether they're willing to condition or not on it is something different, but that they're single story. There's not a lot of large lot single story houses in Vista. It's just, it's unfortunate when, some old guy like me looks for a house, I look for a single story because I don't negotiate stairs very well. But I do have problems with the project. I do have problems with the parking. I have big issues with the parking. I live in a development that's almost exactly what they're proposing. It's half-acre lots. There's no parking on either side of the street. Credit was given by the city of Vista for driveway parking, and unfortunately, nobody uses it. People don't like to park in other people's driveways. I think maybe when you're coming to visit somebody, you feel like you're encroaching on their personal space or something, but almost everybody that comes and visits, they park on the street. So our HOA has gotten lax in terms of enforcing it. So in reality, we have fire lane violations because people are parking, on the street. So I don't think at this point I could support the project unless the developer is willing to do something to rectify that. There's a lot of ways to do that with conditions, whatever. But anyway, those are my thoughts, and those are my issues.
Very good. Commissioner Garrettson.
Yes, I have a number of concerns. One is parking that Mr. Grimm talked about. Also, I have concerns about the amenities and the open space, whether that is more than just taking a little bit and, whether that's going to be adequate for this group. And I'm concerned about the traffic and what impact it's going to have on the rest of Vista Grande, especially without sidewalks. And I have some concern about the fit within this neighborhood in terms of zoning.
All right. Yes, Commissioner Hastings.
Thank you. I have concerns about this is sort of like a radical turn somewhere. Just because the new zoning would allow for 28 lots, do we have to have 28 lots? I have sympathy for the points around where's the open space in this? Where's this looks to me like an extremely suburban development. It may be half-acre lots, but to me, there's a sense of they're jamming in half-acre lots in this. And I can see reducing the number of lots, maintaining the half-acre zoning, but reducing the number of lots so that there is more open space allowed, either as larger parks, more walking space. I can't get real creative right now, but that really bothers me about this. I think that if this were treated as an area that was transitional between the larger lots and even the ones that are further south that went off Prince Way, when you look at that from the air, it also has that, to me, very forced sense of let's put as many of those lots in there as we can to develop as much. So I know that that's a reduction in profit for the developer, but I do feel strongly that I don't like that many lots for this development.
Okay, very good. Please, thank you. Commissioner Savage.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I grew up in Vista with the open space and being able to access a lot of these kind of properties, which I heard some of the local residents talking about. And I think something that might help remedy this is a reduction of those lots. I don't know if that's a possibility, but also the man gates. I heard mentioned in one of the residents' comments, having pedestrian gates that allow onto the property for local residents to use these open space, with the residents that you're going to be putting in here. I think that might alleviate some of the public impact. And I know that as someone who's, someone who got to enjoy those amenities as a young person, I think that might be something that, could be a sign of good faith. To Commissioner Looney's point, there are a few lots on here that don't seem to really facilitate that kind of agricultural space. I know when you have a house on there, for instance, lot 26, maybe lot 1, the house in the middle of that lot might restrict really kind of using it as more of an open area. So it might be something to consider for the developer if this is a pain point. I know also having these separated out, I'm not exactly sure why that is required, is to kind of separate them out. But I know you have 3 spots here. If those can be aggregated into one more larger space, I don't know if that can help as well. But in terms of creativity, I think allowing access for local residents to the property, to this area, and maybe reducing the amount of lots might create more of that communal space. My other thought too is this the sidewalk just being on this portion. It does seem like the sidewalk is primarily for the residents of this development. So if the developer is interested in other improvements, that might be an advantage as well. So just want to bring up those points, but primarily those pedestrian gates seem like a really, really good sign of good faith to the community around. So,
Very good. Mr. Winters, if I remember correctly from the staff report, the density of the project is 1.6 dwelling units per acre?
Correct.
Did I get that right? Okay. I have a number of comments. I agree with Commissioner Grimm about the lack of on-street parking. And if I was doing the project, I would widen Vista Grande to 36 feet. Unlike his neighborhood, my neighborhood has 36-foot wide streets, and we park on the street, especially when there are high school graduations and the entire football team comes and attends a party on the street. There have been weddings, birthday parties, Christmas, everybody parks on the street. So we need to have on-street parking in the project. So I would say Vista Grande across from the half acres on the south side, 36 feet, and allow parking on, since it's going to be a private street, parking on both sides. On Street A, in front of lots 22 and 23, south of Lot B, that needs to be widened to at least 32 feet to provide parking on one side. The balance of Street A going north seems to just provide access to the single-family home that's not a part of the project, and so I'm fine with that being 24. But Street B, and I'd be interested in the rest of the commissioners' comments, I think needs to be at least 32 feet to provide parking on one side all the way through the project. Now, Commissioner Hastings brought back to memory an idea. A long time ago, when I was a young staff member, we did the Shadow Ridge project in this city, and density around the golf course was pretty high. But as you move north towards the existing single-family rural residential areas along Thibodaux, densities got reduced. So perhaps we should look at the homes fronting on Vista Grande and on the south side of Street B being half acre, but increasing the lot sizes of the homes that are on the north side and on the east side of the project. I'm throwing that out as an idea that might address the concerns of the neighborhood, and additionally for the street widths to provide additional parking in the neighborhood. So that's where I'm at. Commissioner Aguilera.
I would agree with that. I think my thought was maybe, I'm just throwing this number out there, but looking at more like 21 units rather than the 28 units, that would give them the increase that they're looking for. But keeping lots 22 through 16, the half acre, and the ones north and also east, closer to the 1 acre, if that would work. Simply because the questions I asked earlier were leading to this, in that someday the property north of this project is going to look at being annexed. And whether that happens in the next couple of years, the next 10 years, I don't know. But this is going to be one of those transition properties. I know Chip was talking about the fact that there's no nexus there, but when we looked at it, when I was on city council, that was a nexus right there. And So that is going to be looked at, and having 1 acre on the north side is going to be very important if that property does get annexed in. And the same thing, you know, going back to the SB 9 thing, we got to think about that as well. You know, I'm not sure if there's a way that we can require that the properties be built in such a way that there is no access to the back of the property, so they can't split it. I don't know if that's even legal, but that would be something I would like to see, where you prevent people being able to split this in the future, because that's state law now. There's nothing a city can do about that. But we can possibly ask the developer to build wide homes where there is no access to the back for a fire truck to allow for that. The ADUs, there's nothing we can do about, but that might be something that I would consider. There was one other thing. Sorry, I lost my train of thought here. As far as being a private road, I know a lot of cities are going this way because this is puts the burden on not only the developer but the owners of these homes. But I do see an issue with that. I think many of us who have lived in this city for a long time and maybe lived on private roads, 10 years down the road, you get new owners, they don't even get it. They don't understand what they're in for, and they're being asked to improve roads. Is there a way that we can require that the road, specifically Vista Grande Drive, the main road there, be paved, I don't know, every 15 years or every 20 years, something like that? It's just a requirement, because I know that if you get the right group of people in a community, they will oppose it. But if it's required, I don't know if that's even legal, but I think that's something that neighbors are gonna want. I mean, it's gonna be 10, 15 years before you start seeing any kind of real wear and tear. But trust me, our road, after 20 years, started cracking. We had some degradation of the road, and you know, everybody's always looking for the city to fix it, you know. And people that buy in 15 years from now aren't going to understand that it's their road, not the city's road.
We're requiring a road maintenance or street maintenance agreement. Can we put a maintenance requirement in that requirement?
I mean, I might need some help with this, but I know that there is going to be a requirement for an HOA and road maintenance.
Right.
I think it's probably general in nature and not going to address specific timeframes. That does have to be written into the project CC&Rs before the map is recorded. It's reviewed by our engineering division.
Right. Walter, can we make that requirement? But we haven't done it.
Off the top of my head, I'm sure you can obviously recommend it, but it would be up to the developer to put it in the HOA rules and the CCRs. It would be very much akin to a private road maintenance agreement with a dedicated timeline, because there's going to have to be funding for it.
Right.
So, but contractually, off the top of my head, I don't see a reason it can't be done.
And then I just have one last thing, and this is not necessarily my recommendation, but I'm just wondering if there was a consideration, because I know that there's a concern on the western part, well, basically at the end of Vista Grande, heading towards East Vista Way, there's a sharp turn there. And I know some of the neighbors have written in concerned about speeding coming down Vista Grande from the development, obviously. Traffic circle, has that ever been considered there? I know a lot of people are against those, but they have worked out very well for controlling and slowing people down. Is that was that looked at all?
Not to my knowledge. I do know that there are conditions of approval that are going to require a street light, particularly at that location, as well as a 50-mile-per-hour sign.
At the turn there?
For traffic control, right.
Or where?
The elbow?
At the elbow right there?
That's correct. We're approximately where that Well, there's a street light shown on the exhibit right now at the lower left corner, the blue circle,
Okay.
if that's where the area being
Oh, I
talked
see what you're
about.
saying, yeah. But here, are you, okay. I know there was a street light discussed, but I didn't realize it's right there on the project, all right, here? Yeah. Okay.
All right.
I think I'd rather have a circle than a traffic light myself, but
I just want to clarify, the street light that he's referring to
Oh,
is
to
on the
illuminate.
site. It's not down off-site at the turn going to,
yeah, that's kind of where I'm,
Okay.
it's on the site.
okay.
There's a letter from the neighbors that we received that talked about the info.
Yes.
That's where you're talking about, right?
Yes, further,
Okay.
yeah, not there, further. Again, that's something that I think I would encourage the developer and city staff to discuss with the neighbors. I heard somebody throw out something about an RV and that, and I get that gets pretty tight. So just a thought, trying to think of ideas of slowing traffic down for you. Thank you.
Commissioner Grimm.
Yeah, I guess first off, I may have sounded like it, but I want to let the developer know I'm not against the project. I just think it needs some work. In terms of some of the things that have been brought up, I kind of, Rick and I agree on almost everything, but I disagree on that the lots should be modified in size. I think 20,000 square foot lots are compatible with, like I said before, with almost any of the same or larger lots. I do agree that Vista Grande, if we can make it public, we should. I don't like throwing that burden onto the homeowners in the future. But probably just listening to everybody, I think we're at a point, and maybe if we provide direction of this, probably has to be sent back to staff. I don't think we can design it here.
I agree. And that was going to be my next question of staff. There's enough concerns here that I don't think there's going to be a recommendation of approval.
I think we
How
need
would
to
you
give
like
the
us to proceed?
applicant an opportunity here to try to address some of the concerns that were presented, and then maybe give him an opportunity to decide how he'd like to move forward before the vote, if that's okay.
Okay, all right.
Thank you for the opportunity to kind of come back up and maybe address some of the comments that were presented by some of the speakers. Advocating for responsible development, I think there was a comment made that throughout the city of Vista, a lot more dense projects are taking place. We feel what we're proposing with half-acre large lots is more of a preservation of an existing use and compatible with the surrounding area because of maybe some of the other developments that are going on in the densities. We feel that our project is somewhat unique in that regard, and we are trying to do our best to preserve what we feel is a semi-rural environment. You know, it was mentioned that all of the obligations that we had committed the project to were consistent with the 14 lot project approval. That's just not necessarily accurate, specifically relating to East Vista Way. That's a major ultimate improvement. That was not a requirement or obligation of the 14 lot subdivision. It's something that we, again, voluntarily obligated ourselves in the project to do. You know, the comment about the urbanization of the particular area, again, which is due in part to, you know, are we developing on ridgeline? It's my understanding there's no true definition within the city ordinances or requirements of what a ridgeline is. And again, we're doing our best to adhere to the existing topography within that particular guideline. In particular, a comment was made in regards to the loss of fire insurance, and I think that's solely related to the current existing use of this 17 acres. It's a fallow site. It's an area where fires are going to foster, and they're going to continue on to the other areas. I'm not an insurance agent by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know the legalities of it, but I think when you enhance this area, you develop it, you increase capacity, you increase access, you increase water supply, and add additional fire hydrants. You know, my observation interpretation is that the surrounding areas, I think, will benefit from that from a fire insurance standpoint. So I think the development of this will actually aid and benefit to provide additional insurances to those who may have lost, you know, potential insurance. The mention of, you know, the illumination of the area. Again, we went through a very diligent process with staff and all the related fire department and police. And what we propose is the 3 street lights, which is consistent with more of a dark sky environment, which is, again, an adherence to kind of the existing and compatibility with the area. That was a condition that was provided by the police from a safety standpoint. That is what they are suggesting. That's why we have it proposed to be three current streetlights. And one of the comments somewhat addressed it, but the houses that are going to be looming over the general area, again, these are large lot developments, and there's some concern about the adjacent property owners just to the east of our project. Some of those lots, if you look at the measurements, I think they're in some situations depths of 200 to 220 feet. Obviously, following the guidelines for the particular land use and the zoning, it's about a 50-foot setback from center line. That puts a house at a certain distance, whereby we feel there's probably going to be 100 to 120 feet from the back of the house to where our property line might be along those eastern edge. So there's no real looming over those existing homes. Again, there's a very far setback from a structure standpoint because, again, these are very large lots. There was conversation about this being a gated community. The fact that this is not a gated community, we took under some consideration from some of the feedback that we got from these 7 residents to the south of our project about making this a gated community. We actually looked at it from a geometrics and civil perspective, and it doesn't work. But most importantly, from a fire safety and fire protection standpoint, it doesn't really work, just due to the fact that it's another kind of encumbrance for the fire department to come up and protect and serve. And again, it just wouldn't work from a gated standpoint. But we did listen to them. We did run kind of the analysis to look into what that might be. And it was ultimately determined, again, from a safety perspective, that it just wouldn't necessarily be in the best interest of public safety and life safety. So therefore, there's no gate at the front. The only gate that's mentioned is the knockbox key at the emergency fire apparatus access on the easterly side of the project. We feel the project that we're proposing and the different street widths that were kind of mentioned are in consistence with the city standards for this type of proposed use for the zoning and general plan. You know, we are proposing about a 1.6 units to the acre with the proposed land use and zoning. It does allow for a 2 to the acre. So we did try to take into account certain areas. It's my understanding that there's no requirement within the city ordinance or code for this type of development to provide any common open space at all. Again, with large half-acre lots, kind of the affinity and the use is somewhat within those particular areas. And so with that being said, we kind of carved out those common area space because we felt it was an added benefit, again, voluntarily. It's our understanding there's no obligation to provide open space requirement for this type of designated, what we're proposing from a zoning and general plan standpoint. The overall conformity to us, again, when you look at the city of Vista proper, we feel that the half-acre lots, again, is truly in conformance with the surrounding area. The neighbors to the south, the 7 property owners there, while they are an unincorporated county, they are, again, half-acre lots. So we do feel there's a lot of adjacencies that would be consistent with it. And again, we feel with the circulation that we're providing within the particular project, we feel that the lots are laid out in a manner that provides balance. There are some irregularity of lots because we don't want to have complete cookie cutter lots that everything looks exactly the same. Again, that was kind of somewhat intentional because we're looking at ways to show some kind of undulation or deviation from your kind of your standard, typical lots. The increase in traffic, again, I think we're taking extreme measures of voluntarily doing an improvement that's of regional benefit that a lot of our proposed homeowners are going to access to get to our development. 150-foot long, 20-foot wide improvement on a public road is something that we feel is very exceptional in the sense of taking it on for a 20-lot home subdivision, especially when our traffic study doesn't require any of that based on the ADU or the ADTs and the amount of traffic count that we're going to be producing from these particular homes. The sewer extension, it was kind of mentioned before, and obviously we have no ability to know when and if people will be annexed and when they want to hook up. We are extending a sewer line from a point of connection on Prince Way up through a sewer easement up to Vista Grande and about another several hundred feet to the east to get to our development. So we feel that our sewer infrastructure that we're putting in, while it's needed for our development, no doubt, it's not necessarily an immediate point of connection. And so the actual infrastructure we're putting in is a bigger area, a longer area that will kind of benefit potentially people in the future should they like to go in and annex. And again, I don't know if there's a requirement or the city can obligate the annexation, so I don't know where that stands. But again, I just want to kind of reiterate that we are putting a pretty significant sewer main extension within Vista Grande Drive. Again, not only to accommodate our project, but it will benefit some of the other existing homeowners. The parking, completely understand and respect where you're coming from. We feel that based on the codes and the parking requirements of this particular designation that we're seeking, we far exceed the parking requirements. Again, I think the requirement is 126 parking spaces. I know they're somewhat within the actual garage structure as well as within the driveway, but nevertheless, those do provide, beneficial parking. Again, based on 3-car garages and being able to put 4 cars in the driveway, we do get to a 196 unit count. And so even if one were to argue that maybe you can't get 7, you get 6, again, I think we still far exceed the designated requirement per the parking code and ordinance of 126. Respect exactly where you're coming from. I know what you mean. People like to park in the streets and maybe use part of their garage for storage, but there's something we can do to help maybe refine that through the CC&R process. That's something we would definitely look at and entertain. Commissioner Savage, I know you mentioned about the pedestrian gates, and I believe if I understood you correctly, it's pedestrian gates to allow for maybe some of the other surrounding neighbors to utilize our property. Again, going back to one of the overall vehicular gate and even a pedestrian gate when we were assessing this is, we're looking for a project to be more inclusive as opposed to exclusive. We felt that, again, not only does a gate inhibit or encumber the fire department from protecting the area, but it does make for an exclusive environment, which is not something that we're doing. I think even a pedestrian gate would further kind of put a gate up or a barrier, and that's not something we're wanting. We want the surrounding area to kind of still benefit from our property, still utilize the internal walkways to kind of travel through where they want to travel. But we feel that, again, keeping it more open in that sense from a gated, from either a vehicular or a pedestrian standpoint is something that we just feel would just kind of make it more exclusive than inclusive. So we want to make it more inviting in that regard. SB 9, we're aware of it. We obviously can't control it. Our ability to put forth homes, I think one of the steps in that direction is doing single-story homes, which is going to create a larger footprint. If you go more vertical with a single or with 2 stories, I think that would allow for more potential space for that secondary access. I think one of the measures that we're taking that would potentially thwart that potential is again these single-story structures that are going to be wider in nature just due to the overall kind of ranch style looking. So I think, obviously we can't, once the property does transact and someone maybe is living in it, the property rights would kick in. And I don't know if SB 9 again stays in perpetuity, if it's a potential temporary consideration, I don't know. But, again, I think with the way that these homes are structured and the way we're going to propose 1-story homes, it's going to, I think, alleviate potentially some of that potential. The conversation about the property to the north, the Kiwanis Farms, we are aware of it. And I think one thing with the transition, I do understand and respect that. And I think one thing that maybe Chip brought up was, I think there's a 100-foot buffer. There's an easement that's never going to kind of go away. And so when and if that development ever comes through, which I know has a long way to go, who knows if and when it will ever come through. But if it does, I think there's still going to be a reasonable setback there due to an existing easement that will likely never go away, and create a 100-foot buffer to kind of show a transition from our half-acre lots to whatever they may or may not propose kind of, to the north of us. So, all in all, definitely appreciate your comments and what you guys bring up. Again, I still feel that what we're proposing based on the 28 lots, one, doesn't completely maximize the density that we're proposing at 2 a lot. We originally had looked at potential whereby you can put, carry out property lines into the center line of the street and have easement rights for everything, which would allow us to put 2 times 17 and put 34 homes. We didn't see that as being an overall benefit. We didn't see that as being something that was consistent with the given area. And so what our proposed land use and proposed zoning allows for is, up to give or take 34, 33 units, which we're well below that on a percentage basis. And so I want you to know that we did take that into consideration in some of these initial designs. Do we have final engineering and final concepts that we need to move forward with as we project potentially progresses? Absolutely. But I think, again, with respect to the widening of the existing widths of the roads, and making that road a private road versus a public road, I definitely respect and understand where you're coming from. We also took into consideration that semi-rural environment. And again, all the widths that we have currently proposed on the project are in conformance with the standards and codes per the city. And I think sometimes in the case where we get a little wider, maybe it does create more of a suburban-like area. Maybe it creates more area where it's industrialized. And we really kind of wanted to, again, maintain some of that existing charm of that area in a semi-rural potential environment. And not, these roads are somewhat wide. I think Vista Grande Drive is 28 feet wide from a paved, curb to curb. And some of the private roads as you go in are 24. And again, those all are in conformance with the city standards and codes and requirements.
So if I understand what you're saying is the project that you presented tonight is the one that you would, that you're sticking with. You're not interested in going back and redesigning to address our comments, and that's.
Sorry.
Sure,
Yeah,
go ahead.
it's Bob Garrison again.
If you have a solution, I'm interested.
I don't have a solution.
Okay.
But what I do is I have, I can hear and I'm listening and I'm hearing, and I get what everybody's saying. I understand that. And I think what we need to consider is to take a timeout for ourselves and do some work together to figure out what we can incorporate in and work with staff and come back and address these things that you've talked about. Will they all come to fruition? I can't tell you that, but what I can tell you is that we've listened, we've heard you, and I respect what you've said. I do, I get it. And so what we'll do is we'll do some work. We've got a lot of work to do. And we'll work with staff too. And we'll come back and we'll walk our way through it. Hopefully that's okay with you.
All right. Should we continue the project or, okay, and return date to be determined? Okay, all right. Commissioner Grimm.
Actually, I was going to ask
the same question.
I was going to ask the same question, but I can make a motion if you want.
Sure. Why don't you do that?
I'll move that we send this back to staff for additional work to address some of the comments that the commission made tonight, and then staff will, I assume, renotice that project and bring it back to us.
We don't have a date yet. We'll have to rely on the applicant, and then we'll renotice it before we have another hearing.
But just so the applicant knows, I'm fine with the general plan and zone change. It's the design of the tentative map that I personally had problems with. If you address those issues, I could see a recommendation of approval. So anyway, any other comments from the commissioners?
I was just going to second it.
Sure. Commissioner Aguilar.
I second the motion, that's all.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to continue the project for the applicant to redesign and come back to us at a date to be determined. I'll call for the question, and again, we're voting by hand, and the motion passes unanimously. All right. Thank you. All right. Well, we continued it. So think about the project, and when it comes back, give us your input. Did you have any comments for tonight? Yeah. Hey, folks, ladies and gentlemen, we still have a meeting to go. Hello?
You're going to have to be more forceful. Just be louder.
Michael will get them.
Yeah, Michael will take care of it.
Don't mess with Michael.
Enforce it.
Peter, did you have comments? Sure.
So given I came into this expecting to favor the project because I believe in more, not strictly urbanization, but like if it was closer to the city center or anything like that, I think increasing density as opposed to decreasing it has some benefits in my view. But this particular project has seemed much more nuanced than I expected it coming in. So with the design of the project as it is, with the large lots not having much outdoor space in between, I think that spacing outweighs the benefits of increased density. If there's not much space to be lived in, even if there's more people living on it, if they're not enjoying it, I think there needs to be improvements in order to take advantage of that density. I do think regardless of improvements or development, I think that particular road needs improvement, whether that be widening or sidewalks or bike lanes or all of the above, because if it's this project or another project, there will still be more people living on it. And with more people comes more children or what have you, or people that just need to use the road to access the rest of the city of Vista. So I think improving that access to all forms of transportation, especially for pedestrians and cyclists, could be well served.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Commissioners, oh, I'm sorry.
Hi.
Hold the microphone down to you.
Okay, so I mean, I was listening to the presentation and I heard from all sides, and I had heard that people were bringing up affordable housing, and I think that this could be a really good project. And I mean, but I come from a family where it's my mom, me, and my sister, and I would love to own a house, but housing is super expensive, and I feel like this could be a fantastic opportunity to turn this into a place where like it can be turned to have people be able to afford these houses, because what I'm hearing is that these houses will mainly go to the wealthy. And I feel, in my personal experience, I used to live in a house, and I mean, we weren't wealthy, but we got it when the market was cheap. And I feel like this could be a good opportunity to give people the opportunity to own a house, because I know there are lots of people out there that want to, and they live in the apartments, and ultimately people live in the apartments because that's the only thing they can afford, and they can't afford housing. So, yeah.
Very good. Thank you. All right, Commissioners, next item on our agenda, reports and comments from commission members. Anyone have comments? Commissioner Garrettson.
Yeah, I just wonder, is there an update on the motel and storage unit on Shadow Ridge by Sycamore behind the old coat factory? Motel and,
The Marriott.
yeah.
Yeah, the Marriott we're still waiting for construction drawings on that project. We haven't received anything. They did lease the adjacent building to a commercial laundry service who's now occupying the site, but the hotel deal is we're still waiting on it.
When you say the adjacent property, you're talking about what was originally discussed as a storage unit facility
Yeah,
is now going to be a laundry?
Yeah, the existing commercial building at 760 Shadow Ridge that was occupied by GE Osmonics is now going to be a commercial laundry.
All right, thank you.
Don't go away, Mr. Conley. Matter of fact, why don't you go ahead with your report? and
Okay,
then
yeah,
we
I'll
can
give you
all
my
ask
report real
questions.
quickly. We won't have a meeting on the 21st of December or the 4th of January, so enjoy your holiday. The next time we'll meet is the 18th of January, and we'll make sure we give you plenty of notice for that meeting. We won't be back before then either way. We have a meeting next week of the City Council on the 14th. We will revisit the proposed general plan amendment and zone change at the corner of South Melrose and Mattagwal across from Breeze Hill Center. There's a 5.3 acre property there that they're proposing to rezone for a small lot, single family subdivision. So that's going to go back to council for the second time to discuss some changes they made after meeting with the neighboring property owners following their first discussion in October. We have a number of code updates that staff's working on, including the small lot subdivision standards that we're going to be bringing forward. We're revising our ADU ordinance, our density bonus ordinance, and objective housing standards, all in accordance with new state laws, and we'll be bringing those early next year for your review. We also have some new standards for SB 9 that we'll be bringing for the Planning Commission's review. Those are probably February, March. And last thing, we have a general plan update that we're looking at. We have an RFP out on the street. We're hopefully going to select a consultant early next year and go to council for approval in the springtime. So if all things go as planned, we should be coming to the commission to hold some workshops in the summertime to start that process. And I expect it to take about 2 years.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Conley? Five guys left?
5 guys left, yes.
And do we, besides lack of business, do we know why?
No, we have, it was just a COVID thing. They couldn't make it with the shortfall in business that they had over COVID. We do not have a new tenant yet. There are a number of businesses in the downtown that are going through plan check and improvements and are going to open up. We have the Handles Ice Cream Shop. We have
that was my next question.
Coomer's Winery, which is across from Shacks. That's going to go at the corner there. There's a number of them going in, but on that Vista, on the newer side, we still have some vacancies. The owner of that center is going to build a roundabout in front of the Wave there where that circular thing is. So they're working
Good.
on that right now, just FYI.
What about the guy that we approved? It's kind of near God, I can't even think of the name of it. The place where you get, that's been here for years with the ice cream. I should.
Oh, Pepper Tree.
Pepper Tree. God, how embarrassing that I forgot that. But the guy that was just across the street, he was going to do a venue similar to the Belly Up, and
They're open.
they are open.
It's called the Vistonian. They've done the TI. They do weddings there for the most part, but they also have special events there. We're going to have a retirement for our economic development director there in January, so I'll let y'all know.
And they haven't done any kind of musical venues.
They have not done any public musical venues. It's all been private weddings, is my understanding.
Did you say when Handles is?
I don't know the date. It's after the first of the year. They're building their TIs right now.
But before the summer.
Oh yeah, they're supposed to open, I think, in February or March.
Okay.
I just wanted you to know that great article in the UT on Paseo Santa Fe and the downtown. I thought that was really good. My daughter is participating in San Marcos's general plan update, and it's being cited by their citizens as what San Marcos should be doing. So good job.
$30 million wasn't put to waste.
And I also saw that Kevin Ham is retiring.
Yeah, that's the retirement I mentioned. So Kevin's retirement is, I think, the 20th, but he's going to come back and help us out until we replace his position permanently. So he'll be here part-time into probably January or February.
Well, speaking for the commission, thank him for us. He's done a great job for the city. We've come a long way under his leadership. And as I've said before, I recommend retirement to all my friends. So
I'll let him know. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Commissioners, anything else? Seeing none, and nothing more, we will stand adjourned until January 18th.